Hello everybody, welcome back to Josephthaler Waterfalls. I've been to this waterfall before because this is one of my favorite waterfalls in the region. I came here today because I read an article quoting a Sony executive who said that smartphones will outperform dedicated cameras. So I'm going to test if smartphones can really replace dedicated cameras. I'm going to take the same picture with a smartphone and a professional camera, and I'm challenging you to guess which one is which. So I've got a budget smartphone with a 50 megapixel front camera, and it's using quad pixel technology, which means that it combines 4 pixels to 1, and the final image will have 12 megapixel. I'm going to take a standard picture with the smartphone with no special settings, just the way you open the camera and take the picture like anyone would do, including myself.
The first image is incredibly blurry. A part of the foreground is somewhat sharp, but the waterfall, the branches of the trees are totally out of focus.
So this is one vertical, and I'm going to take one horizontal.
The horizontal version seems to be sharper, although both images were taken at 1/50th of a second shutter speed. My hands might have shaken while I was taking the first image. Overall, the horizontal version doesn't look bad. However, there's an unnatural look on the trees and the water in the foreground, as if the whole image was pixelated.
I'm going to take a picture with HDR on and one with HDR off and the AI enabled.
The HDR version looks blurry as well, although the shutter speed didn't change. The whole image looks to be out of focus and there's no significant gain in color rendition. I would say HDR is a no-go.
Many of the smartphones, even the budget ones, have already Pro mode, which means that you can set the settings manually, just like you would do on a professional camera. So if I go to the menu and select the Pro mode, then I can tweak and modify the ISO, the shutter speed, the autofocus, white balance. Most of people don't carry a tripod with them, those using smartphones, but I do have a tripod, so I'm going to test out also the long exposure capabilities of the smartphone. So I've got the settings. I have ISO 100, 1/10 of a second. It's not very long, but it's still better than if you take the picture handheld. And I'm going to take now a picture with normal zoom, and since I have disturbing parts on both sides and I have quite much from the foreground and I don't need it, I will try to zoom in a little bit, just a tiny bit. And now I have cropped in the camera that bush on the left side and the little part on the right side and also in the foreground. So now I would say that the composition is okay. I have a tiny rock in the foreground, which is fine, and I have the layered waterfall. And I'm wondering if I zoom in and I use the zoom capabilities of the camera, I'm wondering how much will I use from the image quality.
And what a surprise! The image taken on the tripod seems to be the best version I got so far. At 1/10 of a second shutter speed, the water looks just fine, and the texture of the vegetation is quite good as well. Although it's not pin sharp, it is sharp enough to look okay on a 32-inch 4K monitor. The quality of the zoomed-in image is of course not very good. The digital zoom causes all kinds of artifacts and creates an unnatural-looking image. Digital zooming on mobile phones just isn't a viable option.
By default, the camera is set in quad pixel mode, so that means 12.5 megapixel on the whole for one image, but you have the option also to use high resolution, which means 50 megapixels. So I'm going to test also the image quality with a 50 megapixel image. This function is available only in manual mode, so in automatic mode, not in the Pro mode. So it doesn't matter if I take the image handheld or if I put it on a tripod, because I cannot manipulate the shutter speed or the ISO.
The image taken at 50 megapixel is terrible. Everything looks blurry and pixelated. But I have to admit, this was taken handheld, so this version might actually compete with the ones taken on a tripod if this was also taken on a tripod. But handheld, it's quite unpleasant to the eye.
Now let's see the test with a professional camera. I have with me the Z7 and I'm going to take the same image that I took with the smartphone, and I will take a few other test shots as well, using other functions that the smartphone cannot, and we will see the difference then. The settings are f8, half a second, and ISO 64. And let's give it also a little delay, and let's see.
The image taken with the full-frame 46 megapixel camera is a huge improvement to the image taken with the smartphone. The details in the trees are well visible, the texture is beautiful, sharp on the rocks, smooth on the waterfall, sharp on the leaves. Now this version is just for demonstration purposes. The images with the smartphone were taken at 26mm, this one was taken at 33mm.
One of the advantages of a professional camera is that you can use different filters like a polarizer, which reduces glare, or you can use an ND filter to increase the shutter speed. So let's try the photo with polarizer. I think it's better.
A polarizer in this case makes a huge difference. The details are even more visible and the contrast is fantastic.
And now I'm going to try also an ND filter, a 5-stop ND filter, and that increased my shutter speed to 30 seconds. I'm really curious about this one. And now we wait.
I know, some of you don't like the smoothie, maybe too smoothy water. Some of you prefer to get more texture and shape in a waterfall, but in this case, I think the long exposure looks good. I went to a few other locations to test the smartphone camera, also on large vistas. Viewed on a small screen, the large vistas captured with a smartphone looks good. On a 4K monitor, however, the difference in comparison with a full-frame camera is significant. I'd say there are pros and cons to using a smartphone for photography. One of the pros is the ease of use. You don't need prior knowledge to take good images on smartphones these days. Anybody can frame up an image and the AI will do the rest. The smartphone is pocketable and is always with you. Also, you can share the photo immediately on social media. The computational photography is constantly evolving, and the wide app support for creative filters and post-production apps allow to further improve the image. Despite all these good aspects, we shouldn't forget that the smartphones still perform quite badly in low light conditions. The image quality is poorer once you look at the image on a big monitor and try to print them big. The limited focal range reduces significantly the creative process of photography. With a professional camera, you can use longer exposure times with ND filters. You have special filters for macro photography, astrophotography, infrared, and much more. Due to the many available lenses, you have a virtually unlimited range with zoom lenses from ultra-wide to extreme telephoto. And let's not forget the excellent low-light capabilities due to the large sensor, which allows you to take beautiful photos at sunrise and sunset.
If you are interested in photography, the quality and the features of a smartphone will not satisfy your needs. Even a budget crop sensor camera kit will outperform the highest-end smartphone. If you are interested in photography, my advice is to buy a dedicated camera. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this topic. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. See you next time. Bye!